In this video, I'll show you June 5, 2024, Private Investigator Mikhail Hoffman was working on a workers' compensation case near Hilliard, Florida. While under surveillance by Mr. Hoffman, the adult subject drove to a local church where she and a few minors entered the building. Mr. Hoffman initially maintained surveillance in a Winn-Dixie grocery store parking lot across the street. But when the subjects and several other individuals exited the church to engage in activities outside of the building, Mr. Hoffman moved to the church parking lot to continue his surveillance and documentation of the subjects' actions. An unknown individual from the church asked Mr. Hoffman to leave the property, and Mr. Hoffman complied and moved back to the Winn-Dixie parking lot. However, someone from the church called 911 to report, Hoffman alleging that he was filming children.
Nassau County 911.
Hey, this is. I'm over here at the. We just had a gentleman come up. It looked like he was recording a bunch of our kids that were outside playing. We sent him over to Winn-Dixie. He said he was waiting on somebody, but now I'm literally sitting here watching him with binoculars, watching all the kids.
Yes, sir. So you're at the Winn-Dixie right now?
Hilliard Winn-Dixie. He is in a gray Mustang at the front of the building towards the left of the front door.
Mr. Hoffman should not be on private property, as explained in Section 4, 93.6101 of the Florida statutes. As a private investigator, Mr. Hoffman is licensed by the state to conduct investigations to obtain information regarding the identity, habits, conduct, movements, whereabouts, affiliations, associations, transactions, reputation, or character of any society, person, or group of persons, and the credibility of witnesses or other persons. Mr. Hoffman's workers' compensation investigation easily fell into this category. Notably, there is no legal requirement that Florida private investigators inform the police before conducting surveillance, although there are situations where it might be advisable for safety or strategic reasons. In fact, under Section 4, 93.6119 of the Florida statutes, private investigators are legally prohibited from divulging the contents of an investigative file acquired in the course of a licensed investigative activity to anyone other than the client who hired them for the investigation. As such, Mr. Hoffman would not be permitted to share details regarding his investigation with the officers. Likewise, while private investigators are generally obligated to comply with the same laws as any other private citizen, which means they cannot trespass or enter private property without permission. If private property is open to the public, private investigators can legally enter just like any other member of the public can, and can observe, take notes, and photograph and record activities within these areas. As such, it is highly unlikely that a court would conclude that Mr. Hoffman violated any laws by conducting surveillance in the church and Winn-Dixie parking lots, despite the fact that they were privately owned, as they were held open to the public and Mr. Hoffman left the church parking lot when he was asked to.
Yes, sir.
That gentleman's wearing one too?
Should be, yes, sir.
Is it policy to have your body cameras activated?
Yes, sir.
So he was seen on the property over there. I can't give him a written warning, just a verbal warning for trespass.
Yeah, but you could write him an illegal parking ticket.
As far as when Dixie goes, if they're doing trespassing, I don't think they will, because he's not doing anything there.
No, they haven't complained. They have a complainant. They have to have a complainant in order for you to trespass him from Winn-Dixie, and Winn-Dixie hasn't complained. And he has every right to be here until Winn-Dixie says they don't want him here.
Hey, good. So there's this guy who's filming kids at the Journey Church across the street. He's parked in y'all's parking lot. Apparently he's still filming or looking at them. Y'all want him trespass? Okay. I spoke with the manager of Winn-Dixie.
Unit 43, they definitely want him trespass. They said they don't want anybody on the grounds doing that. Except for you have to get her question.
Deputy, am I being detained?
As of right now, yes, sir, you are. You are being trespassed from the Winn-Dixie.
For suspicion of what crime am I being detained?
As of right now, you were videoing from across the street. That's what our call was about. And now that they want you trespassed, you're being detained.
Who was the trespass?
Winn-Dixie.
Winn-Dixie was the trespass. So I'm being detained for trespass.
Currently, yes.
You understand how the law reads the trespass? I must first be given the opportunity to leave the property when told by a proper agent of that property.
Okay.
Was I given that opportunity? Once again, am I being detained?
Once I give you this trespass warning, you'll be able to leave.
Sir, that's a yes or no question. Am I being detained?
Yes, currently being detained.
For suspicion of what crime?
The deputies inform Mr. Hoffman that he is being detained while he is issued a trespass warning. But when Mr. Hoffman asks what crime he's suspected of committing, the officers do not answer. As we have discussed many times, officers typically do not have the authority to detain an individual against their will, absent reasonable suspicion that they have engaged in an illegal activity under Section 810.09 of the Florida statutes. Quote, "A person who, without being authorized, licensed, or invited, willfully enters upon or remains any property other than a structure or conveyance as to which notice against entering or remaining is given, either by actual communication to the offender or by posting, fencing, or cultivation, commits the offense of trespass on property other than a structure or conveyance. If the offender defies an order to leave personally communicated to the offender by the owner of the premises or by an authorized person, the offender commits a misdemeanor of the first degree. In other words, as Mr. Hoffman explained to the deputies, an individual can only commit trespass under the statute if they refuse to leave or re-enter private property after being asked to do so by an authorized person, or if they enter property that has been posted to give notice of the lack of authorization to enter. As the 4th District Court of Appeal of Florida explained in the 2012 case of D.T. v. State, quote, "In the absence of this prior warning by communication or so-called posting, a police officer may initiate a consensual encounter to issue a trespass warning if he has been authorized to do so by the property owner, but he may not detain or arrest for trespass. Accordingly, it is likely that a court would conclude that the deputies did not have the legal authority to detain Mr. Hoffman non-consensually while they were issuing the trespass warning."
Well, you guys, I tell you, you all earn your reputation nowadays. It's disgusting. You all sit around your departments and wonder why the public feels the way they feel. You all hide behind the words like safety, children. Is there a supervisor on scene?
No, she's not here.
I'd like to have a supervisor on scene. I also like to have business cards from each and every deputy that's on location right now.
Okay. You're welcome to have that, and we can contact the sergeant and see if he's close by and can respond.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sarge close by, you want to talk to sergeant?
He probably is.
Sir?
He probably is. You can call him on radio if he wants to come.
You close by, your presence is being requested by the individual.
Also, for illegal trespass to take place, an agent of this property has to trespass me. I'd like to be afforded the opportunity to speak to them and explain to them probably what lies you told them to get me trespassing this property. Therefore, abusing your authority. I believe that's under code U.S.
Mr. Hoffman argues that Deputy Jones has abused his authority in violation of federal law by telling lies while, quote, quote, soliciting a trespass from the Winn-Dixie manager. And while there are not any specific laws prohibiting a police officer from asking a property owner if they want to trespass a third party from their property, Section 242 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code states that, quote, whoever under color of any law willfully subjects any person to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured, protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned not more than 1 year, or both. Therefore, there may be situations where officers violate this statute by persuading a property owner to trespass an individual, such as if an officer were to encourage a trespass in order to unlawfully restrict a citizen from engaging in protected First Amendment activity, although there is no constitutional right freedom of movement on private property where there is no license or privilege to be. There, Mr. Hoffman could potentially argue that the deputy's solicitation of a trespass interfered with his exercise of his First Amendment right to film and photograph. All right, that works for me. We'll go do it, this guy. Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Yes, sir. May I ask you a question? Yeah. May I ask you what you asked them? Told them? I just told them to scout here illegally parked in your parking spot. And yeah, I wanted to trespass. They're like, yeah, and that's all you said. That's it. Is the body camera running? It is. Okay, thank you. And I told him he's like got trespass from over there. He's sitting there watching. Okay, all I can do is give him a verbal trespass from over there. Sir, how long does it take to write a trespass to win? He should be about done. I hear what you're saying, but you gotta look at it as our way. You're legally parked. You're filming or watching kids across the street. It's weird. Okay, right? Is that not weird? You don't know what I was doing across the street. I'm on private property. I'm not illegally parked on anything. You, sir, have no authority here right now. I've broken no law. The deputy claims that Mr. Hoffman is illegally parked, and Mr. Hoffman argues that he is not violating any laws because he is on private property. Generally, law enforcement officers do not have the authority to enforce parking rules on private property unless specific laws are violated, such as blocking fire lanes or handicap parking violations. In fact, Section 316.006 of the Florida statutes explicitly states that counties only have jurisdiction, quote, over all streets and highways located within their boundaries. Although the statute authorizes counties to also exercise jurisdiction over private roads by written agreement with the owning or controlling parties, there are no state statutes or Nassau County ordinances requiring drivers to park only in marked spots in private parking lots. As such, while the Winn-Dixie would have the authority to enforce its private parking regulations and remove Mr. Hoffman from the property if he refused to comply, it is improbable that a court would conclude that his parking was in any way, quote, UN, quote, illegal or in violation of any laws. Well, by asking them, they're giving me authority. Yeah, you know what? Do you think any business from the law?
Enforcement officer walks in there and says, hey, we got a guy illegally parked. You want him trespassed? Do you think any business is going to say, no, sir? They bow down to law enforcement. They lick your boots like the uneducated.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like it's completely irrational. Like, I'm talking to you normally, and like you're upset.
I'm upset.
But you're illegally parked in a driving lane.
I am not illegally parked. You have no authority over this private property. These aren't official parking spaces. Perhaps you should educate yourself in the Fourth Amendment and personal property.
And then you're like,
property.
And by 2 or 3 witnesses, they're saying, you're over here watching kids, you're over here
Did you do any investigation?
Well, I'm asking you, but you're acting irrational.
I don't have to answer questions.
See, you're acting irrational.
Yeah, I'm acting irrational because I exercise my rights?
No, I'm trying to investigate it, and you're completely losing your crap.
Questions. Sir, I presented a legal state ID that identifies me as a state licensed investigator.
Okay, so like, if I'm doing my job and somebody asks me something, I'm doing this because X, Y, Z. Like, I don't say, that's weird.
You know why? Because I can't stand law enforcement.
Okay.
You all are nothing but tyrants.
Well, tell us how you really feel.
What is your name, sir?
Officer Dan Jones.
Mr. Jones, you as a person, as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as all those things, I don't know you, sir.
Sure.
You could be a fantastic gentleman, a good Christian gentleman.
Sure. I am
addressing you as a law enforcement officer.
Fair enough.
But as a law enforcement agent, okay, you are given authority. You are given power. You are protected by a corrupt system. And you right now are abusing that power, whether you believe it, whether you think I'm right or not. Supervisor, I've been detained here over 30 minutes.
You're not detained. You're getting trespass warnings from here, and you're getting trespass warnings from
I am
there.
detained. I'm not free to go. He's had 30 minutes to write a trespass warning, and I'm still here.
Get out of here. You've been trespassed from Winn-Dixie. You've been trespassed from here.
You don't want to hear how my rights were violated?
You've been trespassed from here, and you've been trespassed from
Illegally.
there. You have your chance to leave. Now you're detaining me.
So you need to leave. Yeah, not a problem. Way to hold up your oath. After being warned that he was trespassed from both the church and the Winn-Dixie, Mr. Hoffman was allowed to leave without further incident. A written trespass warning prohibiting Mr. Hoffman from returning to the Winn-Dixie for 1 year was also issued. Mr. Hoffman filed an internal affairs complaint regarding the incident, but as of the date of writing this episode, the results of the investigation have not been released. Overall, the Nassau County deputies get an F for maintaining hostile and unprofessional demeanors throughout the encounter, likely detaining Mr. Hoffman without reasonable suspicion in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and abusing their authority by convincing the Winn-Dixie to trespass Mr. Hoffman based on misleading and inaccurate information about his behavior. When speaking to the Winn-Dixie manager, Deputy Jones made no mention of the fact that Mr. Hoffman was a private investigator working a case, instead representing him as quote-unquote this guy who was quote-unquote filming kids at the church and quote-unquote looking at them. This guy is filming kids at the Journey Church across the street. He's parked in y'all's parking lot. Parents start filming or looking out of Jacksonville Valley 10-4-1029. I had no idea about that. Then, when Mr. Hoffman asked Deputy Jones what he said to the manager, Deputy Jones once again bent the truth, falsely claiming that he simply told the manager that Mr. Hoffman was, quote, UN, quote, illegally parked. Yes, sir. Yeah. Ask them. I just told him Scott here illegally parked in your parking spot, and yeah, I want to trespass. They're like, yeah, that's all you said. That's it. It is. Given the clear evidence provided by the body camera footage, it seems likely that Deputy Jones intentionally lied to both the Winn-Dixie manager and Mr. Hoffman. The Nassau deputies' clear animus towards Mr. Hoffman throughout this encounter is baffling, as his activities were clearly explained by the fact that he was a private investigator conducting surveillance. However, the deputies did not appear to even check the validity of his credentials and seemed to take personal offense when he refused to divulge the details of his investigation. Despite his legal obligation to maintain his client's confidentiality, while I can appreciate that the deputies may have been feeling protective towards the children who were at the church, as we discussed in this episode, it is not illegal to film children in public. And it was entirely unreasonable for the deputies to repeatedly portray Mr. Hoffman as someone who was filming and looking at children, despite the fact that he immediately informed them that he was a private investigator and provided them with his credentials. Mr. Hoffman gets an A4. Maintaining a relatively calm and professional demeanor during the interaction, protesting the deputies is likely illegal detention and Deputy Jones's misleading solicitation of a trespass, and taking appropriate action after the fact by filing an official complaint against the deputies involved. Mr. Hoffman should be commended for his commitment to both his personal constitutional rights and his client's confidentiality, and I appreciate the forceful but respectful manner in which Mr. Hoffman advocated for himself. Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe our channel for next video.